Tobirama is a liar and a fraud, and I'm going to tell you how he used information and propaganda to decimate the entire Uchiha clan even after his own death. We know the Uchiha clan is shrouded in this whole myth called the curse of hatred, which essentially means that they are doomed by love to turn into savages the moment they experience a huge amount of loss. This whole curse of hatred thing is a lie, and I'm going to tell you how the leadership of Konoha fabricated this to use it as a weapon to eliminate the Uchiha clan. The curse of hatred was crafted to justify the suspicion, surveillance, and the marginalization of the Uchiha clan. So exactly where does this curse come from, and who is the leadership of Konoha at the time? Tobirama, a well-researched person who invented the Shadow Clone, who invented the Edo Tensei, who invented the Flying Thunder God, did his research on the Uchiha clan and came to a conclusion that they suffer from the curse of hatred. Now, he did this research because he didn't trust the Uchiha, and therefore, because the Uchiha are now part of Konoha, he needed like some kind of way to attack the Uchiha indirectly to justify his lack of trust. So according to Tobirama's research, Uchiha feel love so deeply, but when they lose someone dear to them, this love turns it into a stronger hate. Intense trauma or strong feelings cause a unique chakra to sprout in an Uchiha's brain, affecting their optic nerves and awakening the Sharingan. This means Uchiha's eyes evolve in response to emotional pain. Now, of course, this is true, but Tobirama did something you are not supposed to do with science. You're not supposed to take the facts and then take your own opinions and mix it together with science. At that point, you've contaminated the entire experiment. But of course, we know Tobirama did exactly that because of his bias towards the Uchiha. He took the science with his personal feelings and then he called it the curse of hatred. Now, this is dangerous because he characterized the Uchiha as inevitably doomed by their affections, stating that almost all the ones who experience strong feelings are captured by darkness and turn evil. The deeper the darkness, the more powerful their eyes get, and then it becomes impossible to handle them. So by labeling the tendency as the curse of hatred, Tobirama essentially gave his own fear a name. He turned one natural observation into a valued judgment of the Uchiha clan's character. So what does the word curse mean in this context then? It essentially means that it is hereditary. It basically means every single Uchiha that is born is doomed to have this curse. This suggests that madness lurks within every single Uchiha newborn and the entire clan as a fact. Tobirama, of course, would go to use this fact that he created of the Uchiha to make political decisions that justify his bias. Soon enough, the propaganda spread throughout the village and everyone became wary of the Uchiha clan. And with everyone wary of the Uchiha clan, Tobirama then saw fit to enact the second stage of his plan, which is his policies. He assigned the Uchiha clan the lead of the Konoha military police force. The police force headquarters was placed on the outskirts of the village, next to the prison, physically and symbolically isolating them. This was also something that was highly suspected by Obito Uchiha as a ploy to keep the clan contained away from the Hokage's inner circle. It's basically a method of ostracism. Tobirama denied ill intents, claiming it would keep the Uchiha's emotions in check and monitor their passionate natures. But of course, with him spreading the propaganda and convincing everybody in Konoha that the Uchihas are essentially a ticking time bomb, of course everybody will agree with his policies and it's not really going to get a lot of fight back for making such a terrible decision. The curse of hatred theory provided the perfect rationale for these measures, allowing Tobirama to defend treating the Uchiha as a volatile danger for the village's safety. By portraying them as tragic victims of their own emotional DNA, he could justify the policies that treated them as a threat, shifting blame onto them rather than the village mistreatment. And that's exactly how propaganda works in Tobirama's favor. This approach of taking a biological fact and distorting it for political control and justifying systemic mistreatment of an entire group aligns with interpreting Tobirama as someone who lied by fabricating a narrative, acted fraudulently by twisting truth for policy justification, and was deeply prejudiced against the clan. Kind of like racism, if you get what I'm saying. Let me know if you think he was justified for doing that. After Tobirama's dirty work was done, other figures in Konoha who have more power decided to take this theory and double down on it. We're talking about Danzo. So later figures like Danzo perpetuated and amplified Tobirama's ideas, believing the Uchiha were inherently rebellious and using this belief to justify mass surveillance, which led to the massacre. Hashirama, while wanting peace, failed to prevent Tobirama's policies and Madara's alienation, which basically enabled his narrative. But of course, most likely, Hashirama had passed away for unknown reasons, and therefore Tobirama, the more logical thinker, would now be in power, which led to these policies. It also doesn't help that this whole historical spin of the Indra versus Ashura conflict contributed to portraying Indra, the Uchiha ancestor, as the embodiment of hatred and Ashura as the embodiment of love, which basically created a mythic or historical precedent to paint the Uchiha as a doomed clan. So then how did Tobirama manage to convince an entire village that the Uchihas were evil? And you do this by using propaganda, but this is exactly how you do it. You take a shred of truth which convinces people that you are credible, then you take a bit of lies and you mix it together, and that is exactly how you manage to brainwash people. The truth would be that the Sharingan awakens through intense emotions, especially trauma or loss. And the lies would be Tobirama deciding to emphasize only on the negative feedback. He depicted a fear-inducing cycle, which basically is love leads to loss leads to hate leads to power, and the power leads to tragedy. What he conveniently left out is that the intense emotions could also be channeled in a positive way. And by doing so, he rebranded the Uchiha's deep capacity for love as a ticking time bomb. This is described as classic propaganda technique. Take a fact, the Sharingan's trigger, distort its emphasis, and then use it to justify a preconceived notion, which is saying that the result was a narrative widely accepted and taught. An Uchiha with powerful eyes will eventually become consumed by darkness. This narrative will become almost self-fulfilling and put the Uchiha under permanent suspicion, allowing Konoha to surveil and constrain them for their own good. Where you could basically argue that Tobirama added Kagami inside the team because he was considered one of the good ones. It essentially means that Kagami Uchiha inherited the Will of Fire, which is now a piece of propaganda I'm going to talk about in another video, and instead of the Curse of Hatred, which he created to penalize the people of the person in his own team. Seriously, all people had to do was a little bit of scientific research, just a little bit of scientific research. The intensive emotions of Uchiha can be channeled in a positive way. But because nobody did, propaganda counts on the fact that people do not do their research. Because if you do not do the research, then whatever information is presented to you is what you will take and absorb and use. While Konoha's leadership crafted this whole myth, Black Zetsu also had a role in nurturing the Uchiha hatred. So Black Zetsu is an ancient being who has been low-key manipulating ninja history just so he can revive Kage Otsutsuki. And he did this by quietly injecting hatred into Indra Otsutsuki by changing his mind and manipulating him over time. Zetsu was the first person to manufacture this so-called curse by whispering to Indra and tempting him to turn against Ashura. Zetsu altered the Uchiha's sacred stone tablet, editing the content to lure the Uchiha leaders like Madara into pursuing dangerous ambitions like the infinite Tsukuyomi, reinforcing the cycle of hatred. So the cycle of hatred was never a thing. It was just Black Zetsu making sure that Uchiha stay traumatized, stay angry, and stay in darkness. Black Zetsu wanted the world to believe the Uchiha were slaves to hatred, as this myth furthers his goals in keeping Indra and Ashura's descendants in conflict. So if you take Tobirama's propaganda and you take Black Zetsu's deeds and you mix them together, it creates a cycle of never-ending misinformation. Now we know this whole narrative of the curse of hatred is not true because there are Uchiha individuals who defied or complicated the whole curse narrative. The lives of key Uchiha figures disprove the idea of an inevitable curse, right? They show Uchiha are complex individuals shaped by their circumstances and capable of loyalty, love, and sacrifice. For example, let's start with the not so obvious one, Madara Uchiha. He's often cited as the prime example of the curse. However, if we have a closer look at Madara Uchiha's life, this is a man that is driven by tragedy and manipulated by falsehood. His younger brother Izuna was killed by Tobirama. His hatred had a clear cause and a target. Tobirama himself was part of the cause for Madara's hatred and descent into madness. Madara was literally exploited by Black Zetsu through the altered stone tablet, leading him to believe the infinite Tsukuyomi was the only solution. Madara's final actions were guided by an illusion of a better world, not senseless bloodthirst. He channeled his hatred into a twisted form of hope to save the shinobi from suffering. His story is tragic, but doesn't support an innate evil. He was made into a devil by the circumstances and schemers like Black Zetsu. The whole curse of hatred label obscures human truth of his fall, absolving Konoha of blame and hiding Black Zetsu's role in the entire thing. Itachi Uchiha should be a prime example of the curse based on what he did in the massacre. Itachi should have been a clear manifestation of the curse based on the clan massacre. However, Itachi's motivations were actually the polar opposite of the hatred. He killed his own clan out of love and sacrifice to prevent civil war and protected his younger brother Sasuke. He shouldered all the hatred himself so others wouldn't have to bear it. Itachi's life is a direct refutation of the curse. He transformed his trauma into a self-sacrificing mission. Now, he displayed unparalleled emotional control and love. Itachi exemplified the will of fire, love and loyalty more purely than most people. He used his powers to prevent war, not cause it. I guess the whole curse of hatred thing doesn't exist when it benefits Konoha's leaders and their agenda. The moment an Uchiha suffers trauma caused by Konoha, then suddenly they're aggressive and the curse of hatred is now a thing again. Would you say Sasuke was influenced by the curse of hatred or not? Well, let's have a look. Sasuke's entire life from the very start was engineered to breed hatred because of the massacre. He spent years nursing bitterness and anger for revenge based on Danzo's actions. After learning the truth about Itachi, his hatred swiveled towards the village elders because obviously they were responsible for this. For a period, he certainly seemed to embody the curse of hatred, declaring that he would destroy Konoha. Yet even in his darkest phases, this was a product of deliberate manipulation and personal grief, not a genetic destiny. He was groomed by Itachi Uchiha to pass on all his hate and anger towards him. He was groomed by Obito, who fed him curated information to use him as a pawn. His descent was nurtured by an outside influence. Before learning the full truth, Sasuke showed capacity to reject senseless violence by not killing a bunch of shinobi during his training with Orochimaru and ordering his team not to kill innocent people. His resolve wasn't to destroy Konoha, but to protect it by becoming Hokage, as he says, in his own way. Being Sasuke and having all the trauma that he has, he thought of a logical way to do it, and obviously that was by eliminating all the Kages who were actually responsible for most of the wars because they involved their personal feelings and their own trauma into this whole conflict. Naruto's unwavering friendship and compassion finally reached Sasuke, literally beating sense into him. Sasuke eventually atoned, protecting the village and embracing a life of repentance and love. His journey demonstrated that hatred was a phase, not an intrinsic endpoint, so he broke free from this so-called curse. Sasuke's entire cycle of violence literally comes to the fact that he was groomed. He was groomed by Itachi to hate him, he was groomed by Orochimaru, and he was groomed by Obito Uchiha to become a pawn. Sasuke is literally a victim that is being manipulated by other people. And this whole Indra reincarnation thing was just a little bit of jealousy which spun out of control because of what Black Zetsu did. So technically, Ashura wasn't reincarnating to just stop Indra. Ashura was reincarnating to have enough power to stop all the fuckeries that Black Zetsu was doing. Let's talk about Shizue Uchiha, who is another patriot of Konoha. Shizue is just another figure challenging this whole narrative by showing his selflessness. He awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan after witnessing a friend's death. This is a trigger that would have led him to supposed darkness, yet he remained a loyal and level-headed shinobi, determined to prevent tragedy. He planned to use Koto Amatsukami to peacefully stop the coup by subtly implanting the idea to stand down in Fugaku Uchiha's mind. This was a solution born from wisdom and compassion, not hatred. Guess who stopped Shizui's plan? An elder who believes in the curse of hatred. Danzo decides to betray Shizui and take one of his eyes. But Shizui does not retaliate. In fact, he just gives his other eye to Itachi and sacrifices himself for the betterment of the village. A level of dedication utterly at odds with the idea that Uchihas were slaves to anger. His experience were supposed triggers but responded with sacrifice and integrity. And the final Uchiha who knocked this whole entire thing into the bin is Sarada Uchiha, but of course by then it's too late. Tobirama and all the Konoha elders got exactly what they wanted, the Uchihas wiped out. Sarada proved that this whole curse thing was never a thing in the first place. She awakened both her Sharingan and Mangekyo through emotions rooted in love, compassion, and resilience, not hate or loss. Her first Sharingan awakening occurred from joy and anticipation of reuniting with her father. This counters the whole thing where trauma is used to awaken the Sharingan. Intense emotions can actually come through love or other means. This is the polar opposite of Tobirama's negativity, where positivity can be used to generate new powers from the Uchiha clan. People say that Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan awakening was literally one of the worst because she didn't go through anything. And that is literally the sign there that Tobirama convinced even you that the curse of hatred is a thing and that negativity and trauma is a necessary component in order to unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan. But if you look at the whole situation, if the Mangekyo is unlocked through high stress, then the scenario in which Sarada was presented with was exactly that, and that's why she unlocked her Mangekyo Sharingan. So, a Mangekyo Sharingan awakened under immense stress from a reality warping jutsu that endangered her close friend Boruto Uzumaki. So, had things continued, Boruto would have lost his life. And because Sarada could envision this loss, her Mangekyo Sharingan awakened. She acted out of pure feelings and moral courage, convincing Sasuke to protect Boruto and saving the day in a scenario designed to incite hatred. Sarada is living proof that Uchiha's strength does not depend on hatred, but can be fueled by righteous and positive emotions. So the Uchiha were never cursed in the first place. Somebody created this whole story and pushed it upon the Uchiha. As long as you don't do your research and you believe in this curse, you will start to believe that you yourself are cursed. And that by itself is enough to push a lot of Uchiha into despair and follow the narrative, because they never believed in themselves from the first place. They were already born and brainwashed by society created by Tobirama that they were destined for darkness for eternity. Tobirama Senju's theory became a self-perpetuating prophecy, eagerly kept alive by fearmongers in the village and by Black Zetsu. The whole narrative just provided simple answers to blame the Uchiha's nature for the complex problems, political distrust, loss and manipulation that they experienced. Uchihas do feel emotions strongly, making them capable of tremendous love, sacrifice, and also hatred. So which way they go depends on the person and their mindset. So when nurtured with understanding like Itachi, Shizui, Sarada, they turn out to be heroes, whereas when they fall into darkness, it's usually due to prejudice, trauma, or manipulation, not genetic inevitability. Because of Hatred was nothing more than a story spun by Tobirama to destroy the Uchiha clan because of his own personal biases and fears. And it was amplified by Black Zetsu to further his own agenda. The moral of the story is, don't just take information from one source. Do your research and confirm if what somebody's saying is true. In the world of Naruto, love and understanding provided more power than hate. Like and subscribe, join the Discord so we can talk some more.